She's still laughing.
That's so funny. Welcome to 5 Lemons Left. We're the real stuff, the lemons making lemonade. So pucker up because we're going to be discussing our life's lessons and the nitty-gritty details of our spiritual journeys.
Hey y'all, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Drusilla.
I'm Melissa.
Hello, this is Morgan.
And I'm Penny. Welcome to our podcast today.
Oh, hello everybody. Welcome. So happy that you are here. I'm happy and proud to be with 4 lemonettes laughing. We miss Penny today. We are sending her love for whatever she is doing right now. Today, we're going to be talking about what is coming up from what's coming up for healing. Last week, we talked a lot about friendships, and we talked a lot about some positive friends that we have in our life. And at the same time, my stuff started coming up. I started thinking about all the times that I wasn't a good friend and all of the patterns that I wish I would have done differently and how to deal with all that. So we're going to jump in today with healing our relationships, healing what we learned about our bodies, healing what we learned in junior high school, really just talk about how we switch that button from self-hatred, self-unworthiness to loving ourselves. So since I had so much stuff come up for healing, I'm going to start us off. What came up for me last week, when everybody was laughing about their friends, the mighty Melissa Drusilla was sharing about her great friendships. I was sitting here thinking, and I didn't want to say anything because, that's life, right? I was sitting here thinking, man, I was a bad friend. I wasn't anybody's Melissa. And at the same time, I did have a lot of friends. And I really believe what is coming up for healing now is to be able to talk about kind of what I learned about myself and just let myself off the hook a little bit. Melissa was talking about hormones changing and different feelings and life that's a big transition. When you start your period, when all of those hormones start going, the mind isn't different. And I remember being in junior high school, in my mind, I was grown, right? Like I was in my own mind, I was an adult. And I graduated high school in 89 and I was on the pom-pom squad. So we marched with the band with the big pom-poms and danced and all that kind of fun stuff. And just recently on Facebook, my pom-pom squad is having a reunion, just like getting together, getting old pictures just randomly out of nowhere. I started seeing this on Facebook. And pictures of me from high school started popping up, and I'm like, oh my God, I was a baby. And I remember thinking back then that I was grown. And I made decisions based on thinking I was grown instead of the child that I was. And I really believe that those feelings, I was pretty promiscuous during those years. And I just thought that I didn't relate it to these hormones changing. I didn't relate it really to anything other than this is what I was supposed to be doing. And also And then something switched and I started thinking about it in the lens of, I shouldn't be doing this. Then I started shooting on myself. Like I started looking at myself through the other people's lens. And that's when I really started noticing that most of how I was interacting with people, with boys, just in general, was outside appearance. It was all about outside appearance. It was all about staying busy, no downtime, constant go, go, go. And that really covering up, started off it brought up shame, guilt, right? For the behaviors that I did when I was that young and I just didn't know any better. Now that I'm 50 something, I can look back at myself at, 14, 13, and have some compassion for myself. But somewhere that stuck, that guilt, shame, because when I started seeing those pictures, little memories started to surface in that same stabbing, guilty, shamey feeling. It was like, oh, those pockets are still in there. And I'm ready to be done with those. Like I said, that was a long time ago. I've been living with this. And it's just amazing the charge that those memories that are resurfacing, are bringing up. And I'm so glad we're together and can talk about this, just verbalizing it. Like I held that secret so closely, some of those things that I did in junior high and high school, I've held those secrets so close. I never, ever talked about them. And I think that piled on. I think that's one thing that communicating with non-judgmental friends and now communicating with, the 500 people that are listening to us. Like just little by little, letting go of that need to hide, little by little, letting that go of those feelings of shame and guilt that I brought on or that I allowed. I don't even know that term, but that got ingrained in who I was from that early age. And for those who are listening and aren't watching on Facebook, my 3 Lemonettes here are nodding their heads. They're getting it. They're understanding. So I'm so happy that I'm not in this alone. And I would love for someone else to share a little bit. So I'm not just hanging out here in the breeze by myself. Yeah. So I know, Melissa, you talked a little bit before we got started. So let me pass it to you.
Okay. Oh, I can completely relate. I had the same I wasn't a pom-pom. I was kind of the opposite. I was like the new wave, hair down, short on one side, long, always out, always with my friends, always hanging out downtown Portland, Oregon. And up to no good at all times. And, I've had the opportunity as a mother, to see these things happen with my own children and my friends' children. And it has triggered me a lot. Like I've been able to have this stuff come up, like things that you're feeling, watching kids in my life experience some of the same stuff. And I see it from an adult looking at what just like you said, these little people making really big grown-up decisions. And when I was that age, I told my mom I was going to move out. I told her she was going to move to California. I'm like, I'm cool here. Just, call me. And she was like, no, I don't think so. I'm not leaving my, sophomore in high school alone in an apartment in Portland, Oregon. So I just thought I was so much wiser and older and everything. So I've also done a lot of a lot of inner child work about it. Like my inner child teenager was, and still is a lot of time, so angry, like pissed off at my family, at the world, so much anger. And I think I dealt with that by being very rebellious, being very promiscuous, doing drugs, hanging out, being with the wrong people, I know I'm lucky to be alive because I was in a very wild crowd. And I've had to, just deal with a lot of that. I also think that like I look at you, Amanda, and I think you have nothing to be ashamed or guilty. You were just a teenager doing the best she could, right? Mm-hmm. And we were being reflected, like, you'll find comfort in boys, you'll find comfort kissing, getting down, all of it. Like those were the messages from our friends and ourselves. And I think for me, some of my life was so difficult to handle in my family that was my whole comfort. That was where I went. And I see it in my children. I have a 17-year-old now, and he really wants nothing to do with me. He wants to be gone with his friends all the time. And it's just a good example for me that this is just how it is. Like I wasn't someone special being bad. It's kind of in the cards at that. I mean, not everyone's bad, but, like it's kind of in the cards. That's your time to break free, get away, not like your parents, move on, all that kind of stuff. But I definitely have had to do a lot of work around the shame of it, of the choices I made. But again, if I'm looking at you, Amanda, I mean, we're always harder on ourselves. And when I look at you, I'm like, oh, you just were being you and you made it and you have nothing to be ashamed about. And those experiences made you the non-judgmental, calm, grounded woman that I love so much. Aww. That I know you have experience. I know you have like, you're street smart and you got your stories. Yeah. And I totally value that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Melissa.
Yeah.
Back at you, girl.
Thanks.
Gotcha.
I'm grabbing it. I'm taking
it. I love that, Melissa. Yeah. So Amanda, how does that show up in your life now? Like if it's coming up for you now, how is that showing up in your life now? I don't know how else to say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how is it showing? I would say that part of it is like these feelings, the emotions that I buried are starting to come up, and I didn't want to feel them then, right? I don't want to feel them now. I don't want to deal with them, right? So my go-to is eating. That's my comfort. Like, because if I eat enough, then my body is so heavy, so tired. So like I'm concentrating on the fullness, the physicalness of being full, that the other stuff kind of goes away. So like part of it is like I'm eating and watching TV and on my phone all at the same time, right? So nothing is no feelings are coming up. So that is what's going on. That's how it's showing up now, is allowing it to come up, to surface, to get comfortable with those feelings, interacting with those people from high school, even on Facebook, right? Posting pictures of myself now as opposed to the skinny girl who thought she was fat in high school, right? I remember thinking that I was heavy in high school, and I've been seeing pictures of myself in high school, and I was not heavy. I was not. That was just not the story. So I think I'm glad you asked that, Morgan, because I think that's how it's playing out in my mind. That's how it's playing out in adulthood, is that what I thought in my mind has manifested in my body, right? That's what we're learning, and that's what we're unlearning. That's what the spiritual journey is.
And can you
go ahead?
Can you kind of compartmentalize things and see that's a protection for yourself? Like, you've made that person who's protecting herself with food and stuff as like a protection for yourself. I mean, that it's a, not, I mean, I want to say good thing, but I mean, we've all done that. Like, that's your person protecting the hurt parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can totally see how that has got me where I am today. Right. And I've been saying this my whole life, but it seems to be different. But I don't want to use that. I don't want to have to cope. I don't want to manage and cope anymore. I'm just done with that.
Yeah.
I'm done with, and I realize that habits that have been around for 40 years, some of them are falling away gently, and some of them are like getting the claws out now, right? And really sticking in. Yeah. And it's so funny talking about hormones, going from the hormones, looking back at my life in those pictures when everything was, racing and coming out. And now I'm, a little over 50 and, menopause is setting in and my hormones are changing again. And it's just, life is interesting. And you asked me if I can compartmentalize. I can do that like a boss. I think that's part of, that is not very comfortable for me. That's not, some people, it's good to compartmentalize. I think I've got so good at it over the years, separating my life into different segments, that for me, integration is right my journey now. Integration and being comfortable with all aspects of my life, coming full circle back to integration.
Well, I'm seeing those parts you made as protection for other parts of yourself. And to what I've had to do is see where I get really angry. And those are my protections against actually feeling really scared about stuff. Mm-hmm. And so that happens in my life now. I just did a whole bunch of journaling about this book club. We're in this money book club, and I had so much anger. And if I see the anger as like a personality in me, that anger is actually protecting me from the fear that I have with around money and not having enough and being abandoned and being having to do things on my own as a little kid, that those fears have come with me into adulthood. And so in order to stuff and put away those scary thoughts, I get pissed. And I'm just pissed at my husband, I'm pissed at my kids, and I'm just pissed at the guy who cut me off on the freeway. And so that's kind of how I see those behaviors that aren't really aligned with who I am right now. Mm-hmm. When I go into those, I know those are my protectors, and that I need to kind of get underneath what that's all about.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It does make sense.
Mm-hmm. It's really powerful, Melissa. So I was wondering, kind of along the same lines, Amanda. So in order to not have to cope anymore, but to resolve, do you feel like you have to get to the root of what was going on? Or do you feel like you can heal without getting to that place and understanding why you were feeling and acting out?
So I think I have done a lot of work on the why. I have like I learned the sexual behaviors from society, from TV at the time. Like if you listen to music, and I'm going to pass just 1 second right here. Just so I'm going to kick it back to you.
Okay. So, for me, I think most of my guilt and shame from my teen years was also around sex. Um, and not that I was promiscuous at all, but for some reason, I had, even before I ever had sex, there was so much shame around even thinking about wanting to have sex. And I don't know exactly where that came from. Probably the same as you, Amanda, TV, or just thinking about women in general and how we are groomed not to want sex or not to be able to relate to wanting sex. But I do remember, or now, even now, thinking about the fact that after I did have sex, feeling like everybody knew and that I was bad and that I was never going to be wanted. I was never going to be wife material. It was pretty heavy stuff for I was in the 10th grade when I lost my virginity, which was a little later than some and earlier than others, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I still do, as I mentioned a few times on the show, that I had my first child, my first year out of high school. And all of that to me is the same stuff. And I still carry it around. And I still have difficulty with intimacy and sex being separate and being together. It's like there's confusion around it, right? Like it should be the same, with your partner, but at the same time, you should be able to separate them as two different. It's all work in progress for me. And when I think about why, it is for those reasons that I had unrealistic thoughts about sex in the body, even as a young girl. And it's never really been solidified for me, even as an adult.
Yeah. And so how does that affect our body image? Like the things that we did in high school, like when we started learning these patterns about ourselves, like how are those? Morgan asked me how it's reflecting in my life now. So how is that reflecting in your life?
Yeah, for me, goodness, it's kind of like I put so much emphasis on using my body as a way of attracting what I want and getting what I wanted in life, that it's difficult for me now to think that I can still get what I want without it, meaning face, body, the whole structure, the whole being. That I feel like all of my youth and just through the years, even 20s, that I was seen as that person. And then the intelligence came. Like the body opened the doors. The body made me popular in high school. Body made me likable in my mind. And so through the years, I used that and my self-worth became all of that.
Yeah.
That was my self-worth. And once you know better mentally, still becomes very difficult to separate that and to put away the falsehoods behind it, because it's so deeply ingrained, and it's reinforced by television, of course, and the whole Hollywood thing and all of it. So it's like, you begin to question what's real and what's not. Well, through the course, we know that none of it's real.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just very difficult to kind of move beyond that and to really understand the dynamics of not being a body and not just saying it, really feeling that in the essence of your soul.
I would think too that if you were so reinforced by getting stuff, using your body and your looks, and that would be very hard to convince yourself that you're not a body.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
To turn that story around, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it goes either way. It doesn't matter if that's what you're not getting attention because of it, or if you are getting, it's all the same. It's all cut from the same cloth. So
Right.
it's definitely not any, going in any one direction. It's something that I think we all learn to dance around, and it's a matter of what tune are you dancing to.
Totally.
Yeah.
So profound.
So it is interesting just to take a pause and just to think about, that's why we're talking about this stuff. Like, what is running in the background that you don't even realize anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what thought patterns are just back there kind of steering us without even noticing, right? Yeah.
I have a very clear one. It's not in the background anymore. I'm very aware of it. But in high school and probably junior high, middle school, even, it started probably as young as that. I talked about that I was a little bit shy, but I've also always been friendly. It's a spectrum. And I had good friends, but I was always on the outskirts of the popular crowd. I wasn't really in the popular crowd, but I was cursory associated with the popular crowd, but never really in. And I made this whole story up that I was just too evolved for the common folks. I was too deep for them. People didn't really get me. And that was sort of that whole black sheep mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that still playing out in my adult relationships, feeling like I'm not fully understood by all of my friends, feeling like I'm still not fully in the in crowd, just kind of on the outskirts, you know what I mean? People like me, people genuinely like me, but I'm not in the fold. Do you know what I mean? So I set up this story as a defense mechanism, like you were saying, Melissa, but then it has continued to color my entire life experience. So I'm very aware of it now, and I'm consciously working to undo those stories that I tell myself and tell others, that I'm a black sheep and that people don't really get me and yada, yada, yada. So, but that's the big one for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I love that you say that. Because when you were the story, I'm sure that we all have the stories, even, telling this, just telling stories out of habit, oh, let me stop that. Why would I want to tell the story again? It's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like the body, like letting go of that identification with needing to be validated externally. Like everything that we need is within, just to get a little spiritual here. Like, you know, so it's everything that we're talking about really is us seeking for something outside of us, seeking validation for something from something outside of us. So, yeah, just, I mean, I'm really practicing, and it is a practice. Definitely don't have this one down, but I'm really practicing caring about others while not caring what they think. And that is, long way away from mastery of that one. But I can quickly recognize when I'm putting too much stock in what someone thinks and bring myself back to center on that. So.
I love that saying, caring for others without caring what they think. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that too.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely not the story of being a teenager.
No, definitely was not my story as a teenager. I may have acted like that was the story as a teenager, but I definitely cared.
Right.
And isn't that a whole nother like outfit to put on? Like, you know, like a shield, right?
Yes.
You put on that gregarious front.
Armor.
So people don't know how much in turmoil that is really stirring underneath the surface.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think what we're learning, or what I should speak for me, what I'm learning and trying to undo is being content and allowing who I am, my connection to source, my source energy to radiate out. So I won't feel the need to stuff it or get it from external sources. And at the same time, somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm still hoping that, like, you know, once I get it, that I'll be thin again and people will like me more. And, you know, like, it's just crazy. I don't know how as women, like, this circle is just, you know, I'm glad that like I'm on this side of it, because at least I can laugh about the absurdity of it. Yeah.
I get it, because it does still pop in my mind every now and again that once I get this stuff right, then all those check boxes will be checked off, right? It's like a crazy cycle.
Yep. I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned with the Course in Miracles is I just always had just what you said, Drusilla, like, and I still do sometimes, you know, those check boxes of once my bank account's here, or once we move to here, everything's going to be okay, or I'll be okay, or people will like me more, or whatever it is. I think the Course in Miracles has really helped me with that. Like redirect. And like Morgan said, everything, your truth is inside. There's a really great quote that, when you look outside of yourself, you dream. And when you look inside yourself, you awaken. And I just love that. I think it's, oh gosh, I'll figure it out and we can put it in the notes, but I just think that's really powerful.
One of my favorite sayings in my family was, in my dad's family, was wherever you go, there you are.
Yep. Oh, well, and I'd like to just say that I think that when you deal with stuff like from your adolescence and you want to deal with it now, you're an adult now. And if you can remind yourself that you're the loving adult that has taken care of children or takes care of yourself. And you can handle loving this part of you. It's not going to destroy you. Like the stuff that comes up, you can parent yourself through and love yourself through. It's not going to be the same kind of trigger as if you were still that teenager who just got busted doing whatever, or the shame that comes up with that. You know, I think that's good to remember so that you can look inside. You can look at your truth and not be scared by it.
Yeah.
And then I just want to just bring up, talking about all this and our bodies. I'm still really attached to like what size I am, you know, like in clothes, in dress size. Like that is some kind of meter of my worthiness. And right. And I was saying before we got on this call, I've literally been like a 12, 14 my whole life. I don't think I was even like in fourth grade. I don't think I was like a size 6. But I've always been a big person, but strong. And that has always though wreaked havoc with my worthiness, is like saying I'm a 14. Like there's something really unworthy about it. From my story, you know, that kind of thing I want to get rid of. We're going to have our, some of our shows about body and body image. And that's just a basic one for me. Like, are you really your size? Whatever size you say you are you that? Is that who you are? Are you worthy or unworthy because of that? And we know there's a lot of pressure from, you know, society and outside, but like, I've never been the beach bod. I've never been that person. And I really have to like figure out what that means for me, my worthiness and who I am. And I would wager to say the people who know me don't give a crap. Like they just really don't. That's not where my worthiness is with them, but it is in my head. What size am I?
Yeah. You know, as a matter of fact, I just realized a couple of weeks ago that whenever I'm in that space that I'm so concerned about my body and rather I gain, 5 or 10 pounds or whatever, someone brings it to my attention. But when I am in my space of I am not a body, it's like I get so many compliments. And it doesn't matter. It's like that's when it's solidified to me that it's my own projections, no matter what. It's coming back to me. It's coming back to me because I'm feeling it and I'm thinking it. So, yeah, to answer your question about when I know that I'm not a body, everybody else knows I'm not a body because I am the one that's projecting it. I'm the one that's deciding it.
That's really cool, Drusilla. And I don't think that is the normal experience for most people. I remember I had a roommate who said that whenever she was like at her most unhealthy, she got the most compliments. Like when she was like starving herself or not eating or over exercising, like she got the most compliments. And I just thought, wow, what an ugly picture of our society that we live in. But I love that your experience completely contradicts that. And it really does all come down to our consciousness and what we're believing. And then that's pictured back to us, reflected back to us.
Yeah. And also when you were describing that, Morgan, and at the same time, since we're creating our realities, right? Like being I have been a size 4 before, right? I was very unhealthy, like what you were talking about. And like, I I feel like I was like, I had that, I put on that shield, right? And so people were seeing that shield, and the people around me, like I was attracting the people that were shielding themselves, right? So it's a whole different thing. So what I was feeding and what people were feeding me was what I wanted them to see.
Yes.
Because I was hiding all the other stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So what an amazing talk. I'm so glad that we decided to circle back around to this. And I'm glad that we talked about friendships last week, because it brought up a whole bunch of healing for this week. Yeah. So any final thoughts? We're about at our time. So any final thoughts before Morgan takes us away?
I think I'm going to think this weekend or this week about what my armor is.
Oh,
like, what do I use as my armor in my mind and probably in reality, but just like what you said, Drusilla, like, and how do I reinforce that I am a body and that that my worthiness, everything depends on this outside world. Like, really, I'm going to think a lot about the not believing I'm a body, and seeing how that reflects in my world. I love that. Really do.
Beautiful.
so Morgan, take us away.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for listening, everybody. Next week, Penny will be back with us, of course. And we're also going to have our very first guest on the show, our very dear teacher, Jennifer Hadley, that brought us all together, will be joining us. So be sure to tune in for that delicious episode. And we'd love to get some feedback from you. If there's a specific topic that you'd like to hear more about, or something that we haven't discussed yet that you'd like to hear us gab about, then let us know. You can email it to us, info@fivelaughinglemons.com, or you can drop us a comment on Instagram or Facebook. And yeah, like our stuff. Share our stuff, leave us comments and reviews, anything to help spread the goodness. So thank you for your support. We love you.
Thank you. And it's 5 lemons. It's 5 lemons laughing.
What did I say?
5 laughing lemons.
I did? Oh my gosh. Thank you for clarifying. I totally missed that. That's hysterical.
5 lemons laughing.
We are that too, but you won't find us there.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Okay, good call out. All right. See you next week, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.